Jerry Cantrell once stood next to Layne Staley, their voices blending so well that the audience couldn't tell who was singing. But when one of them collapsed, the gaze immediately focused on the other. And since then, 3 decades have passed. The rumors have never stopped. Jerry only started singing when Layne collapsed. Jerry could have saved his friend, but didn't. Or even Jerry was the one who silently stepped into the void. At the age of 58, after many years of silence, Jerry finally broke that darkness. Not a long interview, not a dramatic confession. Just a few short sentences, but enough to shock. What he admitted surprised fans. What he refused to say is the mystery that no one has solved. And it is that silent gap, perhaps, that is the key to understanding the tragedy of Alice in Chains. Which truth has been confirmed? Which truth remains in the dark? Let's find out right away. Chapter 1. Layne makes Jerry sing, and the unexpected truth. At 58, Jerry Cantrell finally made clear what Alice in Chains fans have been arguing about for years. It was Layne Staley who pushed him to step up to the mic. At first, Jerry didn't think he'd sing. He just wanted to stand behind the guitar, write, and let Layne sing. But Layne had a different vision. He believed that Jerry's husky, deep, and steady voice could complement his own fierce, fragile voice. "Here's your line. You should sing," Layne said. From that moment on, Jerry began to join in more and more. First, just the chorus, then the harmonies, and eventually became an integral part. The audience gradually recognized the strange combination. On one side was Layne, emotional, fragile, like a stretched string. On the other side was Jerry, husky, low, steady, like an anchor. When the two voices met, they created a layer of sound that no longer distinguished between main and secondary. Years later, Jerry admitted, "That became our identity. 2 voices merging into one larger voice. This harmony is what makes Alice in Chains different." While Nirvana exploded with rebellion, Pearl Jam with raw power, Soundgarden with drama, Alice in Chains immersed the audience in a musical world that was both haunting and hypnotic. But it was here that the rumors began to appear. Many fans believed that Jerry only started singing when Layne was declining, that he had to take over in the last years to keep the band alive. This is a story that is repeated over and over again in the press, forums, and conversations between fans. But Jerry denied it. Right from Facelift and Dirt, he was there, accompanying Layne. Not to replace, but to accompany. What is worth mentioning is that this truth also shows another, less seen Layne. Not only the grunge icon tormented by darkness and drugs, but also a friend who knows how to share and support his teammates. Layne did not keep the light for himself. He put his faith in Jerry, and that decision changed the sound of a generation. Perhaps that was the greatest gift Layne left Jerry. The courage to speak up, to turn a quiet guitarist into the vocal half of Alice in Chains. And that was also what Jerry wanted to confirm at the age of 58, that it all started with Layne. Why did Layne trust Jerry so much? What was it about the quiet guitarist that made him give his friend a piece of Alice in Chains' soul? Chapter 2. 2 voices, 1 song. A secret no one can distinguish. There's one thing Alice in Chains fans often confess. Sometimes, even after listening to a song over and over again, they're not sure who's singing, Layne or Jerry. That question has haunted the band for 3 decades, from the early days of MTV to the age of social media. On Man in the Box, the chorus comes out as a single, powerful mass of voices. You hear Layne, but there's a sense of another layer rising up behind him, as if 2 breaths were merging into one. On Rooster, you believe you're listening to Layne tell his own story about his father returning from war. But then there's a moment when a deeper, more solid voice appears, making you wonder, is this Layne, or is it someone else standing with him, sharing his pain? The strange thing is, whether live or in the studio, that sense of blurring never goes away. It's not the usual lead backing style. Here, no one has completely retreated to the background. Both stand side by side, covering overlapping, forming a unified layer of sound. One voice is fragile and trembling, the other is hoarse and disciplined. When they come together, they become a solid mass, as if the audience is hearing a larger, thicker voice, difficult to separate. That ambiguity has given rise to many theories. Some say it is due to mixing, to studio techniques that layer vocals. But if it is just technique, why does the feeling still appear when the band sings live? Others say Jerry deliberately imitates Layne to match his voice. But if you listen closely, the clear contrast is still there. Layne is sharp as a blade. Jerry is rough and heavy. They are different, but somehow they blend into one. At this point, the obvious begins to emerge. The blurring is not an accident. It is repeated, in the right place, at the right time, in many different songs. An effect too consistent to be random. And the more you listen, the more it sounds like a tacit agreement that Alice in Chains would sing like that, to create their own identity. It is this ambiguity that makes their music so haunting. The listener does not need to know who is who. What they get is the feeling of being pulled into a dark but heavy space, where the two voices do not compete, do not cover up, but complement each other. That harmony is like two shadows merging into a single shadow, confusing the audience and making them unable to leave. And then, many years later, Jerry only revealed a short sentence, like a key to close all the speculation. Two voices become one bigger voice. Not to distinguish who sang lead and who sang backup, nor to compete for the spotlight. That was the intention from the beginning, a shared voice, where both were hidden behind the music. But if the two voices were so intertwined, the inevitable question was, when Layne was fading away, why couldn't that intertwining pull him back? And is there a wound in Jerry's heart that has never healed? Chapter 3. The friendship that can't be saved, and Jerry's anguish. When it comes to Layne Staley, the biggest torment comes not only from his untimely death, but from the recurring question, why didn't anyone save him? And among all of them, the name Jerry Cantrell is often mentioned. Because if there was someone who could have harmonized so well that they couldn't tell the difference, then why didn't he keep Layne alive? This is the most serious rumor, and also the deepest wound. People used to talk. Could Jerry have done more? Had he given up too soon? These debates spread from newspapers, radio, to online forums in the early 2000s. Many people put the responsibility on his shoulders, his friend, his teammate, the other person. In fact, in silence, Jerry tried many times. There is an anecdote that before a show, he stood for hours in front of Layne's room door, patiently knocking, just hoping his friend would come out. Another time, he almost had to help Layne onto the stage, just to keep the audience from being disappointed. But those efforts are rarely mentioned, because Jerry never wanted to turn friendship into a story to be publicly complained about. He chose to keep quiet, so that the music and memories would remain intact. Many years later, when the memories had receded, Jerry uttered a few short sentences. I miss him to death. Just 4 words, but enough to express the loss. Then another sentence, which sounded like both an explanation and a confession. You can't save somebody by yourself. No one can save another person with just love or music. This statement made many fans feel down. It was both an admission that Jerry was powerless and a way to affirm human limits. There are battles, even if you stand by. You cannot fight for someone else. Layne has entered a journey of his own, and no one, not even Jerry, can change the direction. The truth is heartbreaking, but it also clarifies what has been distorted. Jerry is not a person who gives up. He was there, he tried, but in the end had to accept that salvation cannot come from the outside. It was a decision only Layne could make, and Layne, in his final years, no longer wanted to fight. For the audience, this is a difficult climax to swallow, because we always want to believe that friendship can change fate, that if someone had tried a little harder, tragedy could have been avoided. But Jerry is forced to pull everyone back to reality. Sometimes, even friendship, the deepest are powerless in the face of darkness. And it is here that Alice in Chains' music becomes even more poignant. Two voices once merged into one, in the studio, on stage. But in real life, one fell, leaving the other to continue walking with a void that could never be filled. Jerry did not need to say much. He left behind a song, like Black Gives Way to Blue, as a farewell. A simple song, just piano and guitar, but containing an unhealed wound. Perhaps that was also Jerry's way of answering the final rumor. He could not save Layne, but he could keep his friend alive in music so that his voice would never disappear. And for the audience, the question still lingered. If Jerry, the person closest to Layne, was also powerless, then who else could save him? Or was tragedy inevitable from the beginning? Chapter 4. Grind, when rumors become weapons. During the peak years of grunge, Alice in Chains faced not only musical pressure, but also a constant wave of rumors. Newspapers, tabloids, and even entertainment TV shows constantly focused on the story of Layne's addiction. The band is about to break up. Cantrell is taking the microphone. Each article, each headline pushed the band's image into a vortex of suspicion, especially in the period after Dirt and Jar of Flies, when Layne appeared less and less. All eyes were on Jerry. Rumors spread that he was about to replace Layne, that Alice in Chains no longer had a lead singer. For young audiences at that time, rumors were often louder than the truth. They gradually turned into alternative facts in the crowd's memory. The band did not give many interviews. They chose to respond through music. And so Grind was born, opening the album Alice in Chains in 1995. Right from the first verse, the lyrics were like a knife straight into gossip culture. In the darkest hole, you'd be well advised not to plan my funeral before the body dies. The message was clear. They knew what people were saying, knew the headlines were burying them alive, and they responded not with an interview, but with a sarcastic song. It was an affirmation. The band wasn't dead, and Layne was still there. For their loyal audience, Grind became proof that Alice in Chains refused to succumb to gossip. But for the general public, the paradox remained. The quieter the gossip, the stronger it grew. And it was that silence that led many to think that perhaps what they were hearing in the press was true. Jerry later admitted that he and the band members didn't care to correct each story. If we kept running around explaining, we wouldn't have time to play music. But the price of silence is a legacy shrouded in unverified whispers. This makes one realize a vicious cycle. Rumors are born to fill a void. And it was Layne's void in his final years that made Alice in Chains the perfect target. Grind is like a frown, a reminder, don't bury us yet. But then time proves the rumors still prevail, and the public is forever haunted by the question, what is the truth? What is the ghost of the media? And it is here that your video hits a climax. If the whole band had to fight the rumors, Jerry, the survivor, bears another layer. He has to live not only with the memory of Layne, but also with the shadow of rumors that has never completely disappeared. Will the truth Jerry confirms later be enough to erase what the press has sown for 30 years? Or will the legacy of Alice in Chains always be a mixture of music and unverified rumors? Chapter 5. Live on to keep your friend there. After all the loss and the never-ending layers of rumors, Jerry Cantrell still stands there, persistently as a witness. Without noise, without fanfare, he chose to live on and let his music be a reminder of his departed friend. In the years after Layne's death, Alice in Chains seemed to have come to an end. But Jerry did not let it sink into oblivion. He once shared, the music they created together was too big, too important, to be just a memory. Continuing to play music for him was not to replace Layne, but a way to keep his friend alive in each melody. The song Black Gives Way to Blue is the clearest proof. Just one piano, one guitar, not complicated, not noisy. But each note sounds like a belated farewell. Jerry did not write that song for the public to sympathize. He wrote it for himself, for Layne, for the wound that never heals. It became a bridge between the past and the present, a way to say that I still remember, I have never forgotten. Offstage, Jerry keeps a quiet life. No scandals, no noise. He focuses on guitar, composing, and small tours, where fans, many of whom have grown old with him, find memories of their youth. During the nights, when he sings an old song, the audience still hears Layne somewhere, like a shadow always standing behind Jerry. What's special is that Jerry never turns Layne's story into a tool to tell forever. He mentions it, but just enough. He shares, but doesn't complain. Perhaps it is this restraint that makes the audience feel genuine. A true friend will not tell the pain over and over again, but quietly keep it and turn it into motivation to live on. To the public, the image of Jerry at the age of 58 to 59 has a different meaning. A person who has gone through storms, still standing on stage, still holding a guitar. That conveys the message that legacy does not only lie in the past, it can continue if still has someone to keep. And so, Layne Staley is still present in every concert night. No need to be noisy, no need to shout. As long as Jerry raises his voice, the listener knows that a part of Layne is still there. It is a silent continuation, a lasting memory, not fading over time. The final question, when looking at Jerry now, is probably not why couldn't he save Layne, but how did he bring Layne along on the remaining journey? And that is a question that needs no answer, because the music itself is the answer. Chapter 6. Music is alive. Rumors are dying. When looking back at the journey of Alice in Chains, one sees a paradox. A band created by the magical harmony of two voices, but also torn apart by an untimely death. Layne Staley left, leaving a void that could not be filled. Jerry Cantrell stayed, carrying both music and memories, continuing on a path without a companion. Today, when Jerry stands on stage, the audience does not only hear him sing, they also hear echoes from the past. Layne's voice still echoes nearby. Even though Layne has been gone for a long time, each song still evokes his image. That is a special legacy, a voice that will never disappear because it has been firmly embedded in the hearts of millions. Perhaps the public has never truly stopped asking the question, who can save Layne? But Jerry showed a different answer. He couldn't save his friend from the darkness, but he kept him alive in music. Songs like Rooster, Wood, Down in a Hole are not just works, but have become pieces of shared memories. And when Jerry wrote Black Gives Way to Blue, it was not just a memorial song. It was a reminder that what Layne left behind was not lost. Music can turn pain into something that lasts longer than time. Thanks to that, even though Layne is no longer here, Alice in Chains still lives, and Layne is still present in every song. Their legacy is not in awards or chart positions. It is in the fact that music makes listeners feel not alone, turns the private pain of an artist into empathy for an entire generation. And that is the reason why Alice in Chains is still mentioned today. Jerry, at 58 years old, has experienced enough to understand. There is no way to erase all the rumors, no way to rewrite the past. But he can tell the simple truth. Layne trusted him, gave him the chance to sing. He can continue singing so that the audience can still hear both voices blending together, even though one is gone. The final question, perhaps, is not why did Layne leave anymore, but why after all these years is their music still so haunting? The answer, perhaps, lies in the truth that Jerry has confirmed. Two people, two voices, once merged into one voice, and that voice, until today, has never been silent. Double quote, double quote.